Okay, guys, welcome. It's good to have you around today. So, this particular session is supposed to take us through writing the calculator, a C code that would run a calculator such that it would request for the name of the user, like I said, to request for the name of the user, then print welcome the name of the user, that is going to welcome the user with the user's name. Thereafter, it would ask the user which operation it wants to perform, and then it would ask the user again if the user enters the wrong input. The calculator will be able to compute 6 operations, that's addition, subtraction, multiplication, power, modulo, and division. It should print the results as it would in an actual calculator, and then it should thank the user after completing the operation. Ask the user if they want to perform another operation. If the user says yes, wants to perform another operation, it's supposed to run the program again. But if the user says no, it's going to exit the program and the code ends. Okay, so I have written the code. I'm going to run it for the first time so that we'll see what the output should look like, and thereafter I'll walk us through the process of writing the code, and I'll also walk us through how to set it up the way we usually set up our task in ALX. I would also teach us how ALX usually set up their task, and how the header file comes in, interacts with some of the other files that we normally have. We'll see how this calculator interacts directly with all of the files that we have, and is able to still give us the same thing that we would usually normally get. Okay, so let me just run this code now and let's see. Okay, so I've started running the code. The thing you see here is this is my first calculator program. So it's saying please enter your name. So let me enter a name, say Samuel. Okay, it says welcome to the calculator, Samuel. Which operation would you like to perform? 1 addition, 2 subtraction, 3 division, 4 multiplication, 5 modulo, 5 power. Please, can someone select one operation that they would like us to perform?
I'll let us perform modulo.
Modulo 5 and enter. Okay, so I punched 5 and I'm pressing enter. Okay, it says now see what it says. You selected modulo. Okay, so enter the first number. So can someone give us one number?
10.
10. Okay, it says enter the second number. Can someone provide us with a second number?
And this is 4.
4. So what should our output, or what should the answer normally be?
2.
That is 2, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's run that and see. Oh, the site is the site is taking long to load. So let me just do this. Sorry, I would run everything afresh again. Let me just refresh the site. I've opened it for a long time, and that's why it's behaving that way. So okay, so I paste in the code once again and I run it. Okay, so Samuel 5 once again modulo. The first number is 10. The second number was 4, right? The second number was 4, right?
Yes, 4.
Okay, so enter. Now do you see it says the modulo of 10, the modulo of 10 by 4 is what? 2, which is very correct. Would you like to perform another operation? Should we say yes or should we say no?
Let's say yes, please.
Okay,
Let's say yes.
1 and then enter. Now after pressing 1 and enter, what is it asking me again? What operation would you like to perform this time?
Let's go for multiplication this time around.
Okay, multiplication, that's 4. I press enter. It tells me you selected multiplication. Enter the first number. Please provide us with the first number.
15.
You may not need to give me a whole number. You can give me decimal number. Let's say
You can use
2.46.
2.4.
This is multiplication. Let's go for a whole number.
Yeah, we can
It
use whole
will be
number. We
easier.
can use floats. Anyone. Okay. Let's go for a whole number, like they say. Okay, so let's use something. Let's use a whole number that is reasonable, that we can easily know the answer. So let's say 4.
All right, 10.
4 multiplied by 10.
Yeah.
Now see what it says. The multiplication of 4 by 10 is 40. Would you like to perform another operation? What do we say this time? Yes or no?
No.
Let's say no.
Let's say
this
no.
time. Okay, so we said no. And what does it say? Thank
you.
And then the code exits. So this is what the code does. So this is how the calculator that I wanted us to code should look like. Sincerely, I coded this today. It took me up to 3 to 4 hours to get to this stage. So it's not very easy. If you really want to learn coding, you have to put in the time. Now you'll be wondering, but look at the number of lines that I had to code. 163 lines are fresh, and the output looks very small. A very small output, but 163 lines of code. That's what programmers have to endure or undergo. Alright, now, so let me explain the code for us. I'll start from the int main. Remember that anytime you want to code, or anytime we're using the online compiler, I explained to us that before the code would run, or the code would only run anything located in the int main. Are we not right? Is that not correct?
Yeah.
So the code would only run anything in the int main, that is in the main function. That's what will run. So now, if you come to the main function, you see that I have declared 2 variables, int num1, int num2. Anyway, I did not even use these 2 variables, but in the process of coding, I had it declared because I was gradually making the codes. I was trying to reduce the code's length. That was why I was taking off something. So I can actually take off this line, and it wouldn't affect the code. But here is the most important. The first declaration here that I have is char name. Now, char name and 50. By adding this 50 here, I have converted this char from taking only a single character to taking a string that is 50 characters long. Are we getting it? If you want to declare a character, we just say char and the name. That is, we declare char is the data type, and the variable name is this name that I have declared here. But by adding this square bracket and the 50 inside it, what I have done is I have indicated that I want this character to be 50 characters long. That is, if someone enters a value to replace name, it can take up to 50 characters long. So I don't think there's anybody's name that can be as long as 50 characters. A single name, I don't think there is. So that's why I put 50 there. 50 should accommodate name. Now the next thing I did was selection. I declared another variable called selection, and the data type is integer. So what do? Now let's look at the code once again. When the code started to run, this was the first line that got printed. This is my first calculator program, and this is it here. This is my first calculator program. Now after running this is my first calculator program, the next line says please enter your name, and you'd notice that please enter your name is what follows. But how are we able to impute Samuel into the code? Simple. This line here that says gets name is what helps us to be able to impute into our code. Now why do we use gets? there are two ways to do this. We can use this get name, or we can use another method, which is the fget. Now for the fget, you need to enter three variables. You need to enter the name of your variable, you need to enter the maximum length, and then you need to enter std, standard input, and then you terminate your statement. So if we want to use fget, these are the three variables we will need to insert. So let me take off these gets and then leave fget for us. So fget name here is the variable name that I declared here. So if I had declared this as boy here, I would replace name here with what? With boy. Are we getting it?
Yes, sir.
So my max length
Yes, sir.
here, my max length here will be what? 50, because that is the maximum length that I initially declared when I was declaring the variable char. So I put 50 here, then stdin remains stdin, just to help your user to know that it's a standard input. Now after writing in the name, the next thing to do is what? Welcome to the calculator. Now notice the identifier we are using to print out the name is percentage %s. Percentage %s is for strings. Why are we able to use percentage %s to print this char? That is because we have declared that char is able to take 50 characters long. So automatically the program would understand it to be a string instead of a character. So it will get it printed out. Now it says, what operation would you like to perform? So after printing welcome to the calculator and the name of the user, on a new line is going to print what operation would you like to perform. Now here, after printing what operation would you like to perform, the next thing you're seeing here is 1 to 6. But on the next line of the program, you're not seeing 1 to 6. What are you seeing here? Operations. Operations here is a function. Just like main here is a function, so our operations here is a function. But what is this function supposed to do? Very simple. Just go up. Let me just take you to the line of code where I have it. This is it here. Void operations void. What does this mean? Void means that I do not want to declare the data type. I do not want to declare the
I
data
have a
type.
question.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's go back to the line where you had welcome to the calculator.
Okay, fine.
Okay. You know when you said print F, welcome to the calculator, what operation would you like to perform?
Yes.
Then in now the next line, is it there should be like, will it just, that message will only be on the, it will only be printed on the screen. What do you do next? Because just asking you what operation would you like to perform.
Good.
Does it time out after that, showing
Okay.
that message,
Now,
or
after showing this information, what operation would you like to perform? It's just a print statement. So the next line of code needs to get executed. Do you get?
okay?
The
I don't.
next.
I'm trying to picture. I'm trying to picture how it will look like on the.
Okay. After this gets printed, I explained that codes get run line by line, not so.
Yeah.
So after running this line,
Is it
what operation would you like to perform? It will move to the next line, which is line 159, and try to perform what is on that line.
like it will? Okay,
It is done.
but is an inter, but is an interactive. Is it not an interactive?
Yes, it
Is it not supposed
is.
to be like interactive? Is it? Is it
It's
not when if you after as printing, what would you like to perform? You should wait for an input that will now direct you to do the next action, or is it just going
no.
to
You look at it.
time out
Look at it
after a
here.
specific?
Look at it here. It says, "What operation would you like to perform?" Then all of this gets listed before you can now make your input. Do you get? After what
Okay.
operation would you like to perform? The next thing you'd see is number 1 addition, 2 subtraction. But on the code, you're not going to see number 1 addition, 2 subtraction on the code. But what you're seeing on the next
Why
line,
is it not on the code? But why is it on the output? Can you explain that?
good, that's what I'm trying to explain. On the next line of code, what you see here is what? Operations. This operations here is a function. So I am calling a function called operation into this code. So what this code will do is, once it gets to line 159, it recognizes this as a function and automatically launches the function. And where is the function? Or what is the function supposed to do? Let me show you what the function is supposed to do. This is the function that gets called. This function here, void operation void. This is the function that gets called and is printed on the screen. Do you see? 1 addition, 2 subtraction, 3 division, 4 multiplication, 5 modulo, 6 power.
Yeah, I can see it.
So in place of that line, operations, what gets printed is actually the function or the code that is underneath the function name operations. Void means I do not want to set a particular data type for operations. Void again because I do not want to impute any argument into the function. The function name is what? Operations. No argument, and I do not want to select the data type. I don't want it to be an integer or a string or a char. I just want it to be operations. No data type name. But what will the function do, or what is the operations function supposed to do? It's supposed to help you print 1 addition, 2 subtraction, 3 division, 4 multiplication, 5 modulo, and 6 what? Power. So we are here now. We are at this point. Where does this please enter your selection comes from? Let's go back to the main code that we're running. On the next line, line 160, what do we see? Please enter your selection. Then you make your selection. That's where this scanf comes. Scanf allows you to impute. So what's your impute? What do you select? We selected 5. Okay, what happens? After selecting 5, we have another function here called what? Choice. But the function choice is supposed to take an argument called what? Selection. And the argument selection was the argument that we provided, which is 5. So choice 5. So what is this function choice? And why is this function choice taking in the argument selection? We need to go and look at the function and see how the function is supposed to operate. So let's go and locate our function called choice that is supposed to take in an argument called selection. Here we are. The function choice is declared by the data type integer with the function name choice. And the argument is supposed to take is what? Selection. That has been declared as a variable type integer. Now, if selection, that is 5 that we entered, is an integer, if 5 is equivalent to 1, what should happen? You should print you selected addition. But in that instance, 5 is not equal to 1. So this if statement does not get executed. Sorry, let me admit someone. But for 5, we come here now. Now we come to this else if block. In our else if block, we have selection equivalent to 5. So what do we see? Print you selected modulo, which is what we see gets printed here as you selected modulo. But after you selected modulo, the next thing we see is what? Modulo, and we see again modulo here is a function. What is modulo function supposed to do? So we locate the modulo function. Here we are. This is the modulo function here. The modulo function is of the data type integer, taking no argument, void. Now, inside the modulo function, I have declared 3 variables as integers. modulo, first variable, which is an integer, num1, second variable, which is an integer, num2, third variable, which is an integer. What do you see gets printed? Enter the first number. So this is where this enter the first number comes from. Then the scanf here takes in your input as an integer. That's why I have it as percentage I, and stores it into the variable called num1. So the 10 that we imputed here as a value gets stored into the variable num1. Then it goes forward to print the next line that says enter the second number. It takes in scanf, allows you to give in the input, which was 4. So the value 4 gets attached to the second variable num2 using this scanf. After imputing num1 and num2, this line gets executed, which is to find the modulo, which is num1 mod num2. How then did we print the modulo of 10 by 4 is 2? The line 58 of our code says the modulo of the first identifier, percentage I, second identifier, percentage I, and third identifier, percentage I. The first identifier is replaced with num1, the second identifier is replaced with num2, and the third identifier is replaced with modulo. So the modulo of 10, that's why we have 10 here, because it's our first identifier, and we have 4 by 4, which is our second identifier, and 2, which was the answer of our modulo. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Good.
But I have a question. Sir. Okay, so at the beginning of this modulo, the code
Yes.
for this modulo, okay, I noticed that the code for the multiplication below, you included math.h. Why didn't you include it for modulo?
Good. Because I did not use
Before
any
yeah.
inbuilt syntax to calculate this modulo. I did not use any inbuilt syntax for modulo. That's why I did not include math.
Okay.
But
Inbuilt
for my power, but you
syntax.
see that for power, I'm using a syntax. The syntax I'm using here is POW. POW. That's why I have to include
Okay.
math, because
Okay.
I'm using a syntax that you can clearly see under the math area. Okay, so if that
Okay.
is taken, now let's see. So it means for my addition, I have to create a function for addition. Just like I created a function for modulo, I created function for subtraction, created function for division. But take note, my division, I had to set my data type as float. The reason being that I want the output to be exactly the same way you would have if you were using a normal calculator. If I divide an integer with another integer, my output will not be a float and would not give me an answer that is similar to what I should normally have on a calculator. So that's why I declared my data types as float. So I have functions for addition, function for subtraction, function for division, for multiplication, for modulo, and for power. Now, how would you like to perform another operation gets printed? Remember, under our selection, we chose 5. This is where again comes into play. So guys, again here is what?
Is a function.
Excellent. Again here is a function. But what is this function supposed to do? Let's look for it. Let's locate it and see what it's supposed to do. Okay, so here it is. Void again void. Void being that I don't want to select any special data type for it, and I don't want to supply in any argument. What is the integers that it is taking? It's going to take an integer called choose, and it's going to take another variable which is an integer called selection. What would be printed? Would you like to perform another operation, which is what you see here? Would you like to perform another operation? 1, this is 1 yes, 2 no. That's what you see here. After doing that, it will print, please enter 1 for yes and 2 for no. That's what you see here. Enter 1 for yes and 2 for no. Then the scanf takes into consideration what? The input that you are going to put. So if I input 1, just like we did initially here, after imputing 1, that's why it says if choose is equivalent to 1, what should get printed? What operation would you like to perform this time? Then what will come out next? Operations. Operations here is a what, guys?
The function that prints the operation choices.
The function that prints all the operations that you want to perform. Then it would ask you, please enter your selection. That's what we'll see here. Then when you make your selection, what happens this time around? Choice, which is a function that takes an argument selection, gets executed, and then you selected multiplication, and then the whole process starts afresh. Else, that is, if the user puts in any other value, what would it say? Thank you. That's just everything. That's all about the code. That's just everything about the code. So guys, if you want your C code to work effectively, you need to be able to master the use of different functions, and you need to be able to merge all your functions together into this. You need to be able to link all your functions together. For example, in my main, the only function I have two functions, which is operations and choice. But in my selection, in my choice, I have function that points to let me locate my selection. I have functions that point to addition, subtraction, modulo, multiplication, and I have a function that points to again. While again, as a function of its own, points to selection and also points to choice. Now guys, how do you know the way to arrange, how do you know how to arrange your functions? If the functions that I have used are not arranged the way that they have been arranged, the code will continue to give me an error. So how do you know how to arrange? To arrange, take note that a function that is dependent on another function will be done below the function it is depending on. Take for example, if I need gas to cook beans, I'm not going to buy beans first before buying gas. The first thing I'll buy is what? Is gas. So I am going to write the function for gas before writing the function for beans, because beans is a function that is depending on the function gas. Are we getting the logic behind it?
Yes.
So it would not make any sense if I wrote this main function first and now started writing this choice function last. It would make no sense. Main is dependent, the main function here is dependent on the function operations and choice. So operation and choice must be written first before I now write the operation main. However, this is because I am using a virtual studio. I am using an online compiler. If I was using a virtual studio and I want to properly write a C file that will become executable, let me now show you how you would write it. Okay, so I will share another tab now. Can you see the tab I'm sharing now?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
You're seeing my GitHub, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I have created a repository called self-project_c. So I advise you to also create a repository for your self-projects. _c there tells me that it's a C programming project that will be embedded inside that repository. Now inside my C file, I have my readme file that says my personal C project. this is the first project I'm doing, which is a calculator. So I open that directory. Now inside the directory, can you see so many things I have? I have my readme, I have addition.c, I have again.c. So this is what we will now do. Each of the functions we have written before, each of those functions that we had written that I showed you, operations, again, addition, subtraction, you will now write them as C files. So look at the first one, addition.c. I've written it as a C file. Can you see? Does this make sense?
Yes, yes.
So also your subtraction. Now you will now have a header file. Look at my header file here. Now what is going to be in my header file? Remember, as you normally write, the if endef, the name of the header included, define the header included. Then what do you see here? Int addition void, int subtraction void, int division void. What are all these things?
Prototype.
They are prototypes. But how did I generate these prototypes?
Based on
Function names.
from the functions. Okay.
Look at this one. Int addition void. Can you see? Can you see the first one?
Yes.
Int addition what?
Yes.
Void.
What?
So all the prototypes or all the functions that I created to perform all the operations for my calculator is what I'm going to put here as my header file. I will not be including this
Say, what is this guy?
this I will not be here with what I'm saying.
I never tried this like this before.
Someone is talking, please can you keep it quiet? The only one that will not be included is this what? Int main void.
You mean into
But where will I write my int main? Let me show you where I wrote my int main now. My int main will be called the actual name of what I expect the executable file to be. So look at this file called calculator.c. That is where my int main will be inside.
Please share the second tab, sir. We are no more
Okay,
seeing
you're
the
no more
second
seeing
tab.
me. Sorry. So I have a C file called calculator.c. It is inside this C file that I am going to have the int main. So let's say
okay.
I want to write a program that will draw a fish. The actual C file that will perform the task is what I will call draw a fish. But every other one, I will name them according to the function that they are supposed to perform. So the addition function, I will name it what? Addition.c. Subtraction function, I will name it what? Subtraction.c.
My God, that's it.
So are we seeing the usefulness of the header files now that we've been using?
Yes. Yes.
So your header files are not for fun or for waste. It helps your code. So this int main now, when this int main wants to run, I have included the header file here. So it will automatically accept all those header files as functions that it requires to run this code. So what do we need to do? Now what you now finally need to do is this calculator.c, you go to your sandbox and then so let's say you are using your virtual studio or whatever studio you are using and you want to actually now go ahead to compile this program. You can, these are all the files. Can you let me share this tab instead? Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you are using a
Yes.
virtual studio or whatever, or maybe it's your sandbox you want to use, no problem at all. And you want to now say, okay, let me now compile. I've finished writing my code. Let me now compile all the files that I have. It's very simple. For let's see how we compile the file now. Now I've compiled already. This is the output of the compile file. You can see it is in green color. I've compiled and I've also set the permission. Let me remove that file and then I'll recompile again. Okay, so I've removed that file now. Let me compile it again for you to see. So I have gcc-c -c. Who can tell me what gcc-c is supposed to do?
Supposed to compile.
Good.
Is what
It's
does
gcc-c
the
supposed to compile.
compile?
gcc-c is compile. So what are we compiling? The file containing the int main.
The calculator dot
Good.
the
The
calculator
calculator.c. And we'll set the output to go into a file called what?
to calculator.
Calculator. I ran that. Excellent. No error. This is the file here. The next thing I need to do is to set that file to what? I set the permission to be executable. And finally, it's an executable file. So basically,
Wait,
that's just yes.
sorry, sir. Let me ask you. Okay, so I wanted to ask. I thought compiling a file automatically makes it to be executable.
Yes,
Or am I wrong?
compiling a file makes it executable. But the reason why I'm just setting setting the permission is just in case anybody that eventually has this file, somebody may download the
Okay,
files from my
okay.
repository and want to run it on their
Repository.
system. In order for it to be able to
Okay,
run
one more
well,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to ask, do we also need to compile the other C files?
No, no,
Division file
not necessary.
modulo.c.
Not necessary.
Okay, okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Good. For me, I did not add a
Use
quote
only one
before my.
one double quote.
Yes, that's the error. So let me call that update. Okay, so it says up to date because the file before is the same as the current file. So there's nothing to push. So basically guys, that's just everything that you need to know to be able to create your project. So I'm expecting that by the next project we'll be doing on 2 days time from 2 days from now, you guys would do better. I expect you guys to do better. I know you can
Boss,
see.
please run us back one more time, just small, abeg.
Well, what I will do is I'll share this code as a notepad file. I'll share it. Then I will try to also upload this video tonight, so that you can go and
Yes.
watch it.
That'll be a
And
good
while
one. Can go
watching
through
it,
it again.
you can
Yes.
be using the notepad to follow along.
To follow up. Yeah.
So that's what I'll do.
That's great.
I agree
Thank you,
with
sir.
you on that. That's very
And
nice.
thank you.